Officials from the European Union are in talks with OPEC representatives to increase the output as the EU considers additional sanctions on Russian oil. I have Victoria Ejugwu, an analyst at Vetiva Research. She joins me now as we discuss the implications and more. Thank you so much for your time today, Victoria. And let's get to the expectations from this meeting.
Thanks for having me today. The EU has generally been avoiding sanctioning Russian oil and gas, and that's because that region is so much dependent on imports, on Russian exports. But now the case is, how do we nip Russia in the bud in such a way that they are punished for the war that's currently ongoing? But the question is, how well is OPEC going to be able to fill in the shoes? So for one, we know that member countries have continually struggled to meet up with production. I think the only two countries that will be able to, if this were to go forward, be able to ramp up production are the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And then Saudi Arabia has stated time and time again that it has no barrels to offer the market, and that's because it's currently using up its spare capacity, to ramp up and meet up with OPEC's quota. So them increasing production will come at the expense of declining spare capacity. And OPEC has said time and time again that current prices have been due to geopolitical tensions and not necessarily fundamentally driven. So the possibility of OPEC, aligning with the EU is quite low.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the EU's influence there and how much they can wield to sway an OPEC action here.
Sorry?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the EU's influence and how much they can wield that influence to sway an action for OPEC.
So it's not really about the influence. It's now about the capacity, OPEC's capacity to really boost production. Like I said and stated again, they are not at a position to do that. I mentioned earlier that members are struggling to ramp up production. Consistently, they've continued to undershoot. So for them to be able to do this is quite, will I say, unrealistic at this moment. Them bringing up production will have to come in with more investments in each of its member countries, and that is something that will not happen immediately. So the market, like I said, will continue to face the supply constraint.
Yeah, because I was going to ask how you are assessing the demand dynamics, especially going into the second quarter, and how you see that playing out.
The world is still at a position of recovering from the pandemic. Travel bans, movement restrictions are over. Even though we have seen the springing up of new variants and lockdowns in China and some other countries, I think that's something that the world will have to continue to deal with. And then when you look at various energy agencies, they had already anticipated some lockdowns this year. So what I think is demand will continue to be resilient. And even still, we're still facing supply shocks. The market hasn't necessarily found ways to plug in supply from low crude inventories, and major oil producers haven't been able to ramp up production. Now bringing in the Russian-Ukraine conflict and potential barrels that might be lost from Russia, believe that the market will continue to be tight going into Q2.
All right, but looking at what your outlook is for prices, especially as to how it affects Nigeria, what are you guys calling it?
Sorry, come again.
Yeah, your outlook for prices.
So we generally expect prices to remain at these levels of triple digits in Q2. That's because even if you look at the planned release from the IEA and the US, that will only account for 1.5 million barrels per day, and the market will miss about 3 million barrels from Russia. More so, OPEC, which is responsible for about 40% of world supply, has continued to undershoot. Like I stated earlier, Nigeria, Angola, Libya haven't been able to meet production quotas. So it will still be the same old story for the market, and we'll still continue to see strong prices.
But very quickly, let's come home here and look at what we're seeing play out here in Nigeria in terms of what the figures we're getting in terms of oil theft. And I'd like to get your assessment of this new military offensive and what sort of impact you think it could have.
I would say that the way we've approached oil theft hasn't necessarily changed. Even if the times in the past and in history where the government has said that they had come up with new military directives to curtail oil theft. So I would say this isn't going to be a different story, and we might need to find a better way to arrest oil theft.